So imagine that everyone in the world has decided to skip the next 10 centuries. The entire population of Earth goes down to specially built underground bunkers, and everyone settles into their comfortable beds. The last person awake sets the alarm clock for 1,000 years in the future and closes their eyes. The millions of robot helpers, which the people say goodnight to, are going to stick close to their sleeping masters. They'll monitor their condition and observe what happens to our planet. So the people don't leave anyone behind to look after our civilization. Their homes and offices in all of the world's cities are handed over to nature. Already, after just one day of sleep, power plants all over the world begin to shut down. The lights of the cities go out. Now there's no TV or internet. The only bright spot left on the planet is Las Vegas. It's powered by a hydroelectric power plant that can keep going unsupervised for quite some time. But there's nobody left to party there, and the neon lights shine down on empty streets. A week later, raccoons start to appear in people's homes. There's no one to scare them off. So they climb in your trash can and help themselves to your fridge. In fact, now they basically run your house. A domestic animal would have struggled to keep going without people for even 1 week. But fortunately, everyone took their pets down underground to snooze with them. Who wouldn't want to sleep for 1,000 years with a cat curled up in their lap? Without electricity, the refrigerators in supermarkets and restaurants will stop working. Food and groceries will soon start to spoil. The bad smell will attract lots of different scavengers and pests. A month has passed since the Great Snooze started. Nature is already beginning to break into large cities. And I don't just mean the plants. The lions who live in the city zoos have realized that their enclosures are no longer electrified. They now rule our towns, walking the streets in search of prey. A year later, without any people around, the world's ports are in chaos. Ropes have begun to tear, and huge cargo ships are drifting free from their docks. Some of them collide with each other or smash into bridges and sink. The rats who lived on the cruise ships will finish off the leftover supplies, and they'll start fighting with the seagulls for scraps. 5 years of sleep. It's impossible to recognize our cities anymore. Vines and ivy have covered buildings, and other plants have turned concrete streets into gardens. You can't hear the endless honk of car horns or the music from all the ads on Times Square anymore. All that's left is the birdsong and the wind. Oh, and Las Vegas has long stopped lighting up as well. Normally, astronauts control and correct the orbit of the International Space Station, but now they're asleep back on Earth along with everyone else. The ISS soon enters Earth's atmosphere and falls to the ground. 10 years. Everyone's already had an incredible amount of dreams, but the real world is changing rapidly. The dams and hydroelectric power plants near big cities are starting to collapse without humans there to maintain them. The water breaks through and floods people's homes. Water levels are rising, and new inhabitants, fish, are appearing in our cities. Within 30 years, we'll lose London and Amsterdam. They were built on marshes that were kept dry by drainage systems. But now nature has got the upper hand, and the streets slowly start to sink. From time to time, our vacant world sees big fireworks displays. No, nobody's celebrating anything. The problem is that forest fires get out of control, and sometimes they reach old warehouses full of these things. The results are quite impressive, but there's no audience to watch them. If you look up in the night sky, you might see a meteor shower. But this time, it's not caused by rocks from outer space, but artificial satellites that have begun to fall down to Earth without humans to guide them. There's a lot of them burning up in the atmosphere. Surprisingly, 50 years after everyone in the world went to sleep, you can still hear human speech. That's thanks to the parrots that are old enough to remember us. Plenty of the ones we used to own are still alive, and they repeat some of the phrases we used. 100 years of sleep. Humanity is still only 10% of the way there, but the world already looks as if we all disappeared centuries ago. Corrosion, along with earthquakes, is destroying some of our greatest achievements. The Golden Gate Bridge and the Brooklyn Bridge have collapsed. Big Ben, Burj Al Arab, and other iconic buildings will be left ruined after a century. Even incredible works of art like the Mona Lisa will begin to disappear right about now. Microscopic bacteria begin to eat the timeless painting, and then they're joined by insects that find a way into her protective glass box. In 150 years, almost a third of all the world's skyscrapers will be destroyed. The roads that passed over subway tunnels will collapse. Washington will gradually disappear, and Los Angeles will become a real savanna with lots of elephants walking around. 300 years of sleep. All the storage devices that people once used to save information will be damaged beyond repair. Without flash drives, CDs, or paper records, human history and culture will be lost. By that time, almost all the cars on Earth will have been destroyed by corrosion, but their flat tires will continue to decay for centuries to come. The Tower of Pisa leans over a little too far and oops! 500 years of sleep. There are very few buildings left on the planet. The Statue of Liberty has been destroyed. Washington has become a swamp, and LA is a desert. The ruins of Venice are completely underwater. And here comes the finish line. Our planet has lived without human activity for exactly 1,000 years. Our big cities are just green-colored ruins. Most buildings are almost indistinguishable from piles of concrete trash. But amazingly, some structures that were built thousands of years ago will still be intact. The pyramids of Giza and the Great Wall of China still stand. The only surviving technology ever made by humans will be the moon rovers. There are 7 of them made by different countries still intact on the moon. In fact, the lunar and Mars rovers will still be around for more than 1 million years and hardly suffer from any corrosion. They might end up being the only proof that our civilization ever existed. And then the alarm clock finally rings. The people wake up and have a good stretch after so much sleep. Their bunkers have maintained the perfect climate, and they have everything they need to support life. People go up to the surface to see what's happened to their world. Of course, everyone knew that the planet would be taken over by nature when they went to sleep. Now they face the challenge of building everything again. They have enough technology and knowledge left in their bunkers to do just that. But why did they go to sleep for 1,000 years in the first place? Well, humanity agreed that it was time to let the planet rest a little. The atmosphere, the oceans, and the animals and plants are all a little healthier now. The worldwide snooze benefited nature. Wild animal populations are back to normal, and almost all our plastic waste has decomposed. Although there's still plenty of toxic waste buried all over the planet, which will still be around for another few thousand years. And humans have another opportunity to get it right. What will they do with their mulligan?